This is my BMW 335D that I bought for 3,000 euros. If you're wondering why it was so cheap, there's one big reason. It was cheap because it's right-hand drive. Previously, we bought this BMW 335D in the UK. And after buying it, we immediately drove it straight back to Norway. However, luck wasn't on our side, and the car had hidden chassis damage, which we had to fix. But in this episode, it's finally time to start converting this car to left-hand drive. At this point, the whole front end is stripped apart, so we have very good access to the steering rack, steering joint, and all the other stuff that we need to swap over, which is the brake booster, ABS pump, ECU box, and many things more. But the interior is still fully together. But before we start stripping it completely down, we need to send in some of the parts to get repainted. And that is the soon-to-be driver's side door, fender, and the side skirt. The other side of the car is all good. We will also need to repaint the rear bumper and the front. I already took off the bumpers and actually gave them away for free, and we will not be reusing them. And I also removed the taillights because we have a little upgrade for that as well. So the first thing we'll start with is removing these parts. First part that we're gonna remove is the side skirt. Freak. We need to take the window down, so I think we need to connect the battery up. I hope it doesn't spray too much diesel. Disconnect, disconnect, disconnect! The doors itself we are gonna reuse, but we need to change the lock because the handle on the driver's side has the manual locking system. Well, this is the passenger one, so it doesn't have that, so we need to change the lock to a European one. Now the parts are off. I put the seats all the way front, and then I remove the bolts in the back of the seat, and I'm gonna put the seats back again. Now this thing should come out, I think. Yes. I found a British pound. Yes. What is happening? Boom, bakla. Center console out. We should have everything off. Damn, I did not expect it to come off that easy. So I undid the bolts that holds the entire steering column in place. Okay, there was one bolt all the way down there that I had to undo. Now it's pretty. Okay, what is hanging? Let's go. This is straight into the garbage. We need another one for the left side. That's out. So now apparently the whole air conditioning unit inside is held in by this bolt in the middle, like that. Now it's only the pipes holding it in. Guys, I never realized what I got myself into. Now I know why no one does this, because no one's that freaking crazy. Like, who in their right mind would think that swapping the steering wheel from one side to the other is a good idea? Why am I like that? The problem is, every single module has to move to the other side. So the fuse box has to move to that side. All the cables for the engine computer that goes out into the engine bay has to move to the other corner. To make this work, I have two choices basically. We either replace the entire wiring loom of the car with another one of the same year, but that creates all different kinds of problems again, because it's different equipment on the other car. So then you need to get one that exactly matches your equipment, or then do a bunch of retrofitting, adjusting and stuff like that, and of course strip out the whole car to replace it, or well, do what I'm doing now and just change the wiring loom, the one that is in the car. So what I'm doing is I'm thinking one-on-one cables and just rerouting it. Where it's possible, I try to remove the pin out of the connector and pull it out of this big mess and reroute it. So I have them here laying, and after we can just put that thing to that side. And if the cable is too short, I have to extend it. So I am soldering the wires. When you're soldering, you have to make super good joints so it doesn't undo itself. When you're soldering, you have to put the soldering pen from under so it heats the joint up. And then you don't put the solder onto the pen, but you put the solder onto the wire that has heated up. The wire has to be as hot to melt the solder by itself. And then you get a good joint, because if not, you get a cold joint and that's not good. So if you make a proper joint, it's not gonna undo itself and it's gonna be good. Especially here, because it's not moving or anything. We will put the modules where they have to be, and then we will just leave it. It's not gonna move because you put the dashboard in and everything closes up. I was delaying it, but now we have to just do it. So pull out the brake booster, and then it's all the mess with the brake lines and annoying stuff. But it's gonna get done. I can already imagine how awful it's gonna be to bleed the brakes. That's it, that's the entire ABS pump. Okay, finally. So right now, here I have the full wiring loom from the other car. The wiring loom that goes in the front between the modules, because it's set up from multiple looms. So this is not the main loom, but the dashboard loom, you could say. Just to have a break from all the wiring in the car, I decided to adjust this one. Here, this is from the parts car, and since this car doesn't have an iDrive, we are gonna be retrofitting a CAC iDrive. I pulled out the connector for the controller in the middle. Here I have the full iDrive, or the CAC. For this controller in the middle, I managed to pull it out of the car, And then it's just two cables for the CAN bus and power and ground. And now I'm doing the screen one. The connector on the car was already cut off when they removed the iDrive, so I had to pick up a plug. So here I have some pins that I have from a random connector laying around. Now we'll solder the pins on it. Then we can just repin it into our loom. There you go. Now we have pins connected. Here's how they look. You have to look at these colors. So the two cables on the right is for the CAN bus, and on the left is just power and ground. You can see that this thing is just gonna plug in straight into the screen. And then there are these cables between the screen and the controller, and between the CAC itself and a USB connector. CAN bus, we're just gonna connect randomly to some other wires of the same color, no big deal. And then it's ground and power. Actually, the first thing to go on is this here, the ECU box. The wiring loom is right here, so we can just drop it in. ECU box fully in. Now the cables do just slide in. Brake lines, I haven't removed them completely yet. I just bent them to the side, but they're completely loose. So when we are gonna swap them out, we just need to remove these ones and put the new ones on. So then the airbag and brake booster sits in this corner. Here I have the connector for the ABS. And this is the connector for the brake fluid level sensor. This seems to be kind of different. So I need to take a look at the parts card before I install this. Now, the wiper. Before we continue the interior, I want to put on the pedal. And to put on the pedal, we need to put on the brake booster. So I thought it's gonna be the same, but it's not. So this is the brake booster from the car originally, and this is the brake booster from the parts car. As we can see, they look almost the same, or actually this part is the same, I think, but the difference is the pipes, or not the pipes, the exit for the pipes. As we can see, the pipes go this way, so the exit is on this side. However, from a European car, the pipes is this way, and the exit is on that side, on the master cylinder itself. So it's different. That's why I just took the whole thing. We're just gonna put the whole thing in there. Then ABS pump. ABS pump is the same, but I took the other one with me just in case, and I also took it with me so I remember which spot the pipes go in at, just so I don't mix up the holes and then it's gonna be a problem to troubleshoot it. So this is the original one. This is for the front right wheel, front left wheel, and these two go back. Let's put the brake booster in the car. Actually, before that, I'll put on this little bracket. This is the bracket for the ABS pump, which is different. So first, it's the European brake booster. Holy shit, there's a bunch of brake fluid everywhere. Then the ABS pump. And now the right brake line. So now up here, everything is basically done. I put the pipes where it should be, everything is clipped in. Everything is in place here, except for the brake booster, but this will tighten itself up after we put the pedal in. So now this Actually, I'm not gonna fully put on the wipers yet, because I'm not sure. I think when I removed them for the parts car, they weren't set at the default position. It was like in the middle. So, not yet. First we need to plug power and make it work. Now, here is the brake booster. Well, that was stupid of me. I really thought that the pedal was gonna be the same. And I didn't even think about checking if it's not. And of course it's not. Okay. Here I have the right pedal. You can see the form is completely different. Good. This bracket here, there was the bracket here, and for some reason there's no hole, or maybe there is under some cover, but the bolt is too long to fit in here. But there's no need for it. It's super sturdy with the bolts that it has. And then there's an entire extra wiring loom that connects all the electronics, so all the modules together, speedometer, and all that stuff. All this cable is routed not the right way right now, but as we said, we just need to test if everything works, or if at least it looks like it works. Battery is connected. So the car did kind of turn on, but not fully. And that I think is because the nothing here is connected, so on the ECU and stuff. So before we do anything else, I think we have to make this ready here and put the engine in. So now I want to install the steering rack. So the tie rods. Okay, so the rack is out. $38. Okay. I had to get the right size of wrench for this. These boots are in good condition. Then I'm just putting two hose clamps So the rubber holds in place. Oh, there's hydraulic fluid everywhere. Now the engine room is ready. Steering rack in place, lines connected, AC lines connected, brake lines all in place, and it's time to put the engine in. However, before we put the thing in, we have to do some preventative maintenance. And here we have some parts that we got in the last video from To Lhd. Eurodale in Norway or To Lhd in the rest of the world is your one-stop online shop for high-quality car parts, accessories, tools, or anything you need within car ownership. They have a massive selection of parts for every car, every need, and every budget. First thing we're gonna replace is the water pump and the thermostat. The water pump, it sits right here. And in order to replace it, we have to undo this pipe. That's the thermostat. And now the new water pump. Now it's the new thermostat. Now it's on, and then it's this hose again. Another thing we have is these little idler pulleys. This one is actually not bad, a bit side movement, but this one is the one that is bad. Then the new one. And then we need to replace this one somehow. I think I need to counter hold it, then just okay, never mind. I literally just snapped it on accident. I will order the new bolt, also from To Lhd. The filter. New filter with a new seal going in. Whether you're driving through the city or cruising down the country roads, one thing stays the same: your car deserves the best. So be smart and buy your parts at To Lhd, because first of all, they have free compatibility feature, so they check if the parts fit your car. Then they have fast shipping and very affordable prices. So make sure to use code EMS1025 next time you shop at To Lhd for a little discount. So right now we have a problem. Gearbox leaks oil like crazy. The oil pan has been replaced by the previous owner not long ago, but it's still leaking oil through the bag, through the plug, because there is a connector to the gearbox, and I guess they did not replace the seal. The seal, it's a round seal like this, and to replace the seal you have to drop the oil pan and unclip a clip and then pull the seal out. So we have to do that. And I want to do it now when the engine is still out. It's a lot easier than laying under the car and doing it. And since we have it out, I want to also drop the whole mechatronic unit and replace these kind of sleeves. They sit between the mechatronic unit and the gearbox itself. Because of age, they become old and brittle. And there's also a seal that looks just like this that also go bad on these gearboxes. In the oil pan itself there is an integrated oil filter, but because it's replaced not too long ago, we're not gonna replace the oil pan. Yeah, I guess you can see that it's replaced. Now let's pull the entire oil pan off. Okay. It looks pretty good for the most of it, at least. Regarding the seal, you just pull this down and you just pull the seal out. I'm not sure why it was leaking, because it does look like it has been replaced, but I'm not sure. In order to replace the seals, we have to remove the entire mechatronic unit. So all this thing. The way it works is you don't need to remove all of these bolts. There's just some of them. As you can see, the form of the bolt is different. There's these small bolts with the rounded off edges around the heads, and then there's these ones, the square ones. So we need to remove the square ones. So this, and then it's gonna just drop off. I think it was stupid for us to reinstall the plug. Okay, so first it's these sleeves here. Just pull them out and you can feel that they are quite hard, and they also should be sticking out like that. They're not supposed to be flat like they're here, but sticking out like that, and then it's this. So then clip it in place like that, and that's it. Now we can pick the entire thing up. We can put on the oil pan. Out of the parts that we got from To Lhd, we also got a oil pan gasket, but now it's been a while, probably a month since we removed the engine and then I cleaned it, and actually the oil is still in the oil pan, and we can see that there's no leaks. It was just dirt, basically dirty, when we removed it. So we're not gonna replace it, there's no need, because we can see that everything is dry and beautiful. Before we put the engine in, I will swap out the engine mounts, because we have new ones. Okay. Okay, time for more fun. Putting the bad boy in. Now I'm trying to put on the stretch belt for the AC compressor, and I'm not sure what's the proper way to put it on. So right now I have all of the bolts for the AC compressor in but loose. I have the belt on, so I will just turn the crankshaft to try to stretch it on. Now I think it's on. Yeah. What I want to do now is connect up the ECU and stuff. One more thing that I had to do is I had to extend the engine loom. Okay, right now I will connect the battery to see if the ignition is gonna turn on, since everything's connected now. So I picked up an entire brand new tensioner arm. So we just need to swap it out. The way it sits, it's pushed in this way, and there's a bolt from the inside here that holds it in place. In order to remove it, we have to remove this whole wheel. Now I should be able to just pull it out like that. And is the part the same? The part is the same. Then we can put back the alternator. Now I'm just gonna add the oil to the engine. Then I wanna try to start it to see if it cranks. I also swapped out the fuel filter. There's no coolant hoses, the radiator is not on, nothing is on, but I just wanna see what happens when we try to start it. Is it gonna try to crank? Is it gonna crank or what? Okay, after a bunch of troubleshooting, we have some good news. The engine is finally running. Let's start it again and see. Yeah, by the way, I also mounted the door because there was a lot of troubleshooting and I wasn't sure why the car wasn't turning on. So I mounted the door just in case, connected it up. but that was not the reason. I don't want it running for long because we have no coolant, no filters, nothing. So now the engine starts up, and as well as the ignition turns on and the iDrive, while the CIC unit, I have the controller right here and we can see it's working. And right now I connected up the original audio system. Yeah, so let's turn the ignition off. So after the first try, I thought that the ignition didn't turn on fully because the engine was not in, but that was not the case because we put the engine in and the ignition would kind of switch on, then there would be an airbag light and it wouldn't turn on more. Nothing would happen. So then I managed to connect up the diagnostic tool and I managed to get connection with the car, and it was showing codes. I mean, of course there was a bunch of codes for everything not connected, but one code stood out. There was a code for the electronic steering wheel lock. So I spoke to one guy that knows this car is quite good. The car is not gonna let you turn on ignition if the electronic steering wheel lock is defect or not working as it should. And then I realized when I turned the ignition on, press the buttons, there's nothing happening from the electronic steering control. When you turn the steering wheel, it usually should lock, and when you turn the ignition on, it should unlock. However, in our case, it was always open, so the steering wheel was never locked. So what we found out is that the steering wheel lock usually gets stuck on the closed position, so then it's locked and then you can turn the ignition on, then you have to change out the whole column. But we got lucky and it got stuck open. What we did then is we did not replace the steering column, but we replaced the software in the CAS module. CAS module is what is responsible for locking the car, turning on ignition, stuff like that. Cars made in US, they came without the steering column lock feature or something along those lines. So I delivered the CAS to the same guy. He reflashed the software in the CAS to a USA software. So now the car thinks there is no electric steering lock. And what I did, I just pulled the connector out of the steering column. Then I plug everything back up, turn ignition on, and the ignition turns on properly. Everything is on. However, I try to start the engine and it only cranks, no fire. Then there was another code for the EVS, that's like the ignition and immobilizer, stuff like that. And there was a code for CAS module and its synchronization. So basically the CAS module was out of spec with the car. So then I managed to use the diagnostic tool and resynchronize the CAS module with the car, and then press the start button, fired right up. And in this episode we pushed this project a lot more forward. The amount of work this episode took was insane. The wiring loom, it took me probably 1 week straight, every day, working on it. As I said, I got the parts back from the paint shop. Then we need to reinstall the rest of the parts. Front end, the front end we're able to reassemble now. I don't think we're gonna do anything more with the front end. We just need to well bleed the brakes. If you would like to support this channel, make sure to check out my Patreon in the description. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. And I hope to see you in the next one.